Stop scrolling. This is not random. You didn't just find this message. It found you. Out of billions of people, out of endless content flooding your screen every second, something aligned, something shifted, something called you here. And if you're still watching, if you're still listening right now, then you need to understand this. The quantum field does not make mistakes. It responds. It reflects. It reveals. And right now it's revealing you to yourself. There is a version of your life, richer, freer, more powerful than anything you've ever imagined, that already exists, not in the future, not as a dream, but as a real, measurable possibility inside the quantum field. But here's the truth most people will never hear. The quantum field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. And today, something is shifting inside you. Something ancient, something powerful, something you felt before but never fully understood. This message, it's not for everyone. In fact, most people will scroll past it without feeling a thing. But you didn't, because something inside you recognized it. And that means one thing: you are ready. The Before we go deeper, take 1 second to anchor this moment. Hit the like button to lock this frequency into your awareness. Subscribe if you're ready to keep unlocking what most people never will. And in the comments, I want you to do something powerful. A comment where you're watching from. Your state, your city. Why? Because you're not alone in this. There are others awakening at the same time, across the country, across the world, and when you declare your presence, you strengthen this collective field. Now let's begin. Siaptiar The quantum field is not outside you, it is you. 3,000 plus words. There's a fundamental misunderstanding that has kept people stuck for generations, especially when it comes to manifestation, spirituality, and what we call the quantum field. Most people think the quantum field is something out there, a mysterious force, an invisible energy, a cosmic system that occasionally grants wishes if you think positively enough. But that belief alone is the reason manifestation fails for so many, because the truth is far more powerful and far more confronting. The quantum field is not separate from you. It is an extension of your consciousness. Let's break this down in a way that actually gives you control, not confusion. In quantum physics, everything exists as energy, not solid matter, not fixed reality, just energy vibrating at different frequencies. Even your body, the thing you think is solid, is made up of atoms that are 99.999% empty space. That means your physical world, your circumstances, your bank account, your relationships, all of it exists as patterns of energy. Now here's where it gets life-changing. Those patterns don't stay fixed. They are constantly shifting based on observation, attention, and expectation. This is called the observer effect. In simple terms, reality changes when it is observed, but not just observed casually, observed with focused awareness and belief. That means your thoughts are not passive, your emotions are not random, your attention is not neutral, they are instructions. Every thought you repeat, every emotion you hold on to, every belief you carry about yourself, is communicating with the quantum field and shaping the version of reality you experience. Now pause for a second, because if this is true, and science is increasingly proving it is, then it means something very direct. You are not experiencing life as it is. You are experiencing life as you are, and that's where most people get stuck. They try to change their life without changing their internal state. They want more money but feel scarcity. They want love but carry fear. They want success but expect failure. And the quantum field responds with precision, not to what they say, but to what they emit. Think of it like a frequency match. If you tune a radio to 98.5 FM, you don't get what you want. You get what matches that frequency. The same is true for your life. Your thoughts set the station. Your emotions amplify the signal. Your beliefs lock it in. And your reality, it's the broadcast. So when people say, manifestation doesn't work, what they're really saying is, I haven't aligned my internal frequency with the reality I want to experience. Now here's where this message becomes deeply personal. Because the fact that you're here, right now, means something inside you is already shifting frequencies. You wouldn't be drawn to this if you were fully locked into your old patterns. There is a part of you, a deeper awareness, that already knows there's more. That already senses that life is not random. That already feels that something is trying to guide you. And that part of you is correct. But here's the challenge: awareness alone is not enough. You can understand these concepts intellectually and still remain stuck. Because transformation happens not when you know, but when you embody. So let's go deeper. There are 3 core layers that determine how the quantum field responds to you. 1. Your conscious thoughts. This is what you actively think about. Your goals, your desires, your plans. Most people focus only here. Repeating affirmations, visualizing success, trying to think positive. And while this matters, it's only the surface layer. Because beneath your conscious thoughts too, your subconscious programming, this is where your real patterns live. Your beliefs about money, your identity, your sense of worth, your expectations about life. These were formed over years, through experiences, conditioning, and repetition. And here's the key: your subconscious does not respond to logic. It responds to repetition and emotion. So if you've spent years feeling not enough, no amount of surface level positive thinking will override that instantly. That's why people feel like they're fighting themselves. Because they are. Their conscious mind says one thing, their subconscious says another. And the quantum field responds to the stronger signal, which is almost always the subconscious. Now beneath even that your emotional state's your frequency. This is the most powerful layer. Because emotions are energy in motion. They are not just reactions. They are signals. When you feel fear, you broadcast fear. When you feel abundance, you broadcast abundance. When you feel certainty, you broadcast certainty. And the quantum field reflects that back as experience. This is why two people can take the same action and get completely different results. Because they're not just acting. They're transmitting. Now here's the shift that changes everything. Instead of trying to get something from the quantum field, you begin to become the version of yourself that already has it. This is not imagination. This is alignment. Because the version of you who already has the life you want thinks differently, feels differently, expects differently, moves differently, and when you begin to embody that version, even before the physical evidence appears, but the quantum field has no choice but to reorganize around you. But this requires something most people avoid, letting go of your current identity, because you cannot hold on to the same fears, the same doubts, the same limitations, and expect a different reality. You have to release the version of you that was built around survival, and step into the version of you that is built around creation. This is why this message feels intense, because it's not just information, it's an invitation to see yourself differently, to think differently, to feel differently, and ultimately to live differently. Now let's address something important, especially for those who are skeptical. This is not about blind belief. This is about awareness, repetition, and internal consistency. You don't need to force yourself to believe something unrealistic. You need to gradually shift your internal state until it becomes natural. That's where real manifestation happens, not in sudden miracles, but in consistent alignment. So here's a simple exercise, but don't underestimate it. Right now ask yourself, if the version of me who already has everything I desire was sitting here, how would they feel? Not what would they have? Not what would they say? How would they feel? Would they feel anxious, doubtful, uncertain? Or would they feel calm, certain, grounded, powerful? Now, instead of waiting for life to make you feel that way, practice feeling it now. Even for 30 seconds. Even if it feels unfamiliar, because that feeling is not fake. It's a preview, a signal, a doorway. And every time you access it, you strengthen that frequency. You make it more real, more dominant, more you. And over time, something remarkable happens. Your external world begins to match it. Opportunities appear. Ideas come to you. People respond differently. Situations shift, not because of luck, but because of alignment. Now understand this. This is not instant. This is not effortless. But it is simple. And it is real. And the fact that you've made it this far into this message means you're not just curious, you're ready to apply it. So as you move forward, remember this core truth. You are not trying to control the quantum field. You are learning to align with it. And once you do, everything changes. There's a concept that most people have never truly understood, even those who study manifestation, spirituality, or quantum theory for years. It's the idea that your life is not moving in a single straight line. You are not traveling from point A to point B, hoping things improve along the way. Instead, what's actually happening is far more powerful. Every possible version of your life already exists, right now, simultaneously, not as imagination, not as fantasy, but as real, energetic timelines within the quantum field. There is a version of you who is struggling, doubting, hesitating. There is another version of you who is confident, abundant, deeply fulfilled, and there are infinite variations in between. These are not future possibilities, waiting to happen. They are existing realities waiting to be selected. Now here's the question that changes everything. If all of these versions already exist, why are you experiencing the one you're currently in? The answer is simple. But it's also the part most people resist, because of your identity. Your identity is not just your name, your background, or your personality. Your identity is the collection of beliefs, emotions, patterns, and expectations that you repeat so consistently that they form a stable signal. And that signal determines which version of reality you align with. So when you wake up each day and think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, react in the same ways, you are not just living your life. You are reinforcing a timeline, over and over again. And the quantum field responds with precision, keeping you locked into that version, not because you're stuck, but because you're consistent. Now pause and really take that in. You're not trapped by your circumstances. You're stabilized by your identity. And that means something powerful. If you change your identity, you change your timeline. This is what people refer to, often without fully understanding it, as quantum jumping, or timeline shifting. But it's not about magically teleporting into a different life overnight. It's about something far more grounded, more practical, and more repeatable. It's about collapsing into the version of you that already exists, by becoming them. Let's go deeper. In quantum physics, there's a principle that a particle can exist in multiple states at once until it is observed. This is called superposition. But the moment observation happens, the particle collapses into one state. Now apply that to your life. All versions of you exist in superposition within the quantum field. But your attention, your belief, your emotional state, acts as the observer, and what you consistently observe is what collapses into your experience. So if you constantly focus on problems, lack, limitations, you are observing that version of reality, and it continues. But if you begin to shift your focus, not just mentally, but emotionally and behaviorally, toward a different version of yourself, you begin to collapse a new timeline. This is where most people make a critical mistake. They try to force a new reality without changing their internal state. They visualize success but feel doubt. They say affirmations but expect nothing to change. They take action but carry fear. And because their dominant signal hasn't changed, their timeline doesn't change either. This is why chapter 1 was so important. Because without alignment there is no shift. Now in this chapter we go further. We move from awareness into transformation. So let's break down exactly how timeline collapsing actually works in a way you can apply. Step 1. Define the version of you that already has it. Most people are very clear on what they don't want. But when it comes to what they do want, they stay vague. I want more money. I want to be successful. I want to be happy. But the quantum field does not respond to vague signals. It responds to clarity. So instead of focusing on outcomes, you focus on identity. Ask yourself, who is the version of me that already has this life? Not what do they own, not what do they achieve, but who are they? At their core, how do they think about challenges? How do they handle uncertainty? How do they speak to themselves? What do they believe is normal for them? Because here's the truth, your future is not created by your goals. It is created by your identity. And until you define that identity clearly, you cannot align with it. So take time with this. Write it down if you need to. Build a clear, detailed understanding of that version of you. Because this becomes your reference point, your internal compass. Step 20. Identify the gap without judging it. Now that you've defined your desired identity, you need to recognize where you currently are. Not with shame, not with frustration, but with awareness. Because the gap between who you are and who you want to be is not a problem. It's a map. Look at your current patterns. What thoughts do you repeat daily? What emotions dominate your state? What behaviors keep showing up? And then ask, would the version of me who already has everything I desire think this way? Feel this way? Act this way? If the answer is no, you've just identified what needs to shift. This is not about fixing yourself. It's about releasing patterns that no longer match your chosen identity. Step 3. Install the new identity through repetition. Remember this, your subconscious mind learns through repetition and emotion, not logic. So if you want to become a new version of yourself, you need to consistently expose your mind and body to that version. This is where most people stop too early. They try something for a few days, maybe a week, and when nothing dramatic happens, they give up. But identity change is not instant. It's built. So here's what you do every day. You consciously choose thoughts that match your new identity. Not forced positivity, but intentional direction. You choose emotions that align with that version. Even if it's just for moments at a time. You take small actions that reinforce it, even if they feel unfamiliar. Because every repetition strengthens the signal. And eventually, it becomes natural. And when it becomes natural, it becomes dominant. And when it becomes dominant, your reality has to follow. Step 4. Collapse the timeline through embodiment. This is the step most people avoid, because it requires courage. It requires you to act before you see evidence. It requires you to trust the process, even when your current reality hasn't caught up yet. But this is where the shift happens. You don't wait to feel confident. You act as the version of you who is confident. You don't wait for certainty. You move with certainty. You don't wait for proof. You become the proof, because the moment you embody that identity, even briefly, you send a powerful signal to the quantum field. This is who I am now. And the field responds. Not always instantly, but inevitably, because it must maintain coherence with your dominant state. Now let's address something important. This is not about pretending. This is not about ignoring reality. This is about choosing which version of reality you align with. Because your current circumstances are not permanent. They are a reflection of past alignment, and just like they were created, they can be changed. But only if you stop reinforcing them. So when challenges appear, instead of reacting as your old self, pause and ask, how would the version of me I'm becoming respond to this? And then act from that place. Again and again. Until it becomes who you are. Now here's where everything comes together. Timeline collapsing is not about escaping your current life, it's about transforming within it. Because as you shift internally, your external world reorganizes. People respond differently. Opportunities appear. Old patterns dissolve, not because of coincidence, but because you are no longer the same person who experienced the old reality. And here's the truth that most people never fully accept. Your life changes the moment you do. Not before, not someday, but the moment your identity shifts. Because from that moment on, you make different decisions, you hold different standards, you expect different outcomes. And those differences compound. They build, they accelerate. Until one day you look around and realize you are living in a completely different reality. Not because something outside of you changed first, but because you did. Now take a breath. Because if you've truly understood this chapter, you realize something powerful. You don't have to wait anymore. You don't have to hope. You don't have to wonder if things will change. Because the version of you who has everything you desire already exists. And the only question is, are you willing to become them? Because the moment you say yes, the moment you commit, the moment you begin to align your thoughts, your emotions, your actions with that version, you begin collapsing that timeline. And once it starts, it doesn't stop. There's one final truth about the quantum field that most people never fully understand. And because they don't understand it, they unknowingly block the very reality they're trying to create. It's this: resistance is not the enemy of manifestation, it is the doorway. Let that sink in. Every time you feel fear, every time you experience doubt, every time things seem delayed or not working, you are not being rejected by the quantum field. You are being shown exactly where you are not yet aligned. And if you learn how to read these signals correctly, you gain something most people never will: control. Because now, instead of reacting emotionally and giving up, you begin to respond consciously and adjust. This is where manifestation stops being a concept and becomes a skill. Understanding resistance at a deeper level, most people think resistance means something is wrong. This isn't working. Maybe this isn't for me. But in reality, resistance is much more precise than that. It is feedback. It is the quantum field reflecting back the difference between who you currently are and who you are trying to become. Think of it like this: if you were learning a new skill, like playing an instrument, and your hands felt uncomfortable, your timing was off, your movements felt unnatural, would you say, "This isn't working"? Or would you recognize that discomfort as part of the process? Of course you would recognize it as growth. But when it comes to identity, to emotions, to manifestation, people misinterpret that same discomfort as failure. And that's where they stop. Right before the shift. Because here's the truth: the closer you get to a new version of yourself, the more resistance you will feel. Not because you're going the wrong way, but because you're leaving behind everything familiar. Your old beliefs, your old patterns, your old emotional baseline. They don't disappear quietly. They push back. They try to pull you back into what feels safe. And if you're not aware of this, you will mistake that pull for reality. The 3 forms of resistance, and what they really mean. To master this process, you need to recognize resistance when it shows up. Because it doesn't always look obvious. It comes in 3 primary forms. 1. Mental resistance, doubt and overthinking. This is when your mind starts questioning everything. What if this doesn't work? What if I fail? What if I'm just fooling myself? This is not truth. This is your old identity trying to stay in control. Because your mind is designed to keep you in the known, even if the known is limiting. So when you begin stepping into something new, it creates doubt as a defense mechanism, not to protect your potential, but to protect your familiarity. 2. Emotional resistance, fear and discomfort. This is when you feel anxious, uncertain, or overwhelmed. Even when you're doing the right things, even when you're moving forward. This is where most people turn back, because they believe, if it feels bad it must be wrong. But that's not always true. Sometimes, feeling uncomfortable is the exact sign that you are expanding. You are stretching beyond your old emotional range. And until your nervous system adjusts, it will feel unfamiliar. 3. Physical resistance, delays and external obstacles. This is when things in your external world seem to slow down or go wrong. Opportunities don't show up immediately. Plans don't go as expected. People don't respond the way you hoped. And it's easy to think, see, nothing is changing. But what's actually happening is deeper. The quantum field is reorganizing. Old patterns are dissolving, new pathways are forming, and in that transition, there can be a temporary gap. Not because it's not working, but because it's working beneath the surface first. The shift, from reacting to responding, this is the moment where everything changes. Because once you understand resistance, you stop reacting emotionally, and you start responding strategically. Instead of asking, Why is this happening to me? You ask. What is this showing me? Because every form of resistance carries information. Every doubt points to a belief. Every fear points to an attachment. Every delay points to a misalignment. And when you identify that, you gain the ability to adjust. The rewiring in real time. Now, let's take this even deeper, into application. Because understanding is not enough. You need to know what to do in the moment resistance appears. So here's a simple but powerful process. Step 1. Pause the reaction, the moment you feel triggered, mentally, emotionally, or physically. Pause. Don't immediately react. Don't fall into the old pattern, because that's what keeps the timeline the same. Instead, create space. Even a few seconds is enough. Step 1. Identify the pattern. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What thought is creating this feeling? Is this aligned with the version of me I'm becoming? This brings awareness, and awareness breaks automation. Step 3. Choose a new response now. Instead of acting from your old identity, choose a response that aligns with your new one. If your old self would panic, you choose calm. If your old self would doubt, you choose trust. If your old self would hesitate, you take action. Not because it feels natural yet, but because it's intentional. Step 4. Reinforce the new identity. Every time you choose differently, you weaken the old pattern, and you strengthen the new one. This is how identity shifts happen in real time, not through one big moment, but through consistent, conscious decisions. The acceleration effect. Here's something most people never realize. When you stop resisting resistance, your growth accelerates, because now, instead of being blocked by challenges, you use them. Every fear becomes a signal. Every doubt becomes a clue. Every delay becomes a refinement. And instead of slowing you down, they sharpen your alignment. This is when manifestation speeds up. Not because things become easier, but because you become more precise, more aware, more intentional, more aligned. Trusting the invisible phase. There will be moments where nothing seems to be happening, where your external world looks the same, where you question if anything is changing. This is the most critical phase, because this is where most people quit. They go back to old thinking, old feeling, old behavior, and they reset the process. But if you can hold your state, if you can maintain your identity, even when there is no visible proof, you pass the test. And when you pass it, the shift happens, because the quantum field responds not to temporary states, but to consistent identity. The final realization at this point, you've seen the full picture. You understand that the quantum field responds to your frequency. Your identity determines your timeline. Resistance is feedback, not failure. Now everything comes down to one final truth. You are not waiting for your life to change. Your life is waiting for you to change. And the moment you fully accept that, you take your power back. Because now, you stop blaming circumstances. You stop waiting for the right time. You stop looking outside for validation. And you start creating from within. Integration, becoming it fully. So, here's what this all comes down to. Not theory, not ideas, not inspiration, but practice. Daily alignment, consistent awareness, intentional action. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to be willing to choose differently again and again, until it becomes who you are. Because the version of you who already has everything you desire is not separate from you. It is you, waiting for you to step into it. Final word. And if this message found you, if something inside you felt it, if you made it all the way to this moment, then understand this wasn't coincidence. This was alignment. And now that you see it, you can't unsee it. Now that you know it, you can't unknow it. So the only question left is, what are you going to do with it? Because the quantum field is always responding, always listening, always reflecting. And from this moment forward, it will reflect the version of you that you choose to become.